Welcome to our web exclusive. I'm Mike Montecalvo, along with Eyewitness News analyst Lieutenant General Reginald Centracchio. A lot of topics to cover today. First, we're going to talk, General, about the controversy surrounding that proposed mosque near Ground Zero. The protesting is escalating. The big question, I guess, today is it will have ramifications worldwide. It
will, and I think what we're seeing here is nothing more than a focus in a place that's pretty significant to all of us. There are many mosques that have been built through the United States, right in the Midwestern part of the United States from time to time. You hear nothing about that. This particular place, no one is saying we can't build a mosque. What they're saying is we would rather not build it here because it's inappropriate. This is a place that has a significant meaning to all of us, and I think the understanding of it has to be a common sense approach to those that would like to build it there. No one is saying you can't build a mosque. We're just saying you can't build it here. We would rather you not build it here. That's the issue.
It's a 13-story building. It's worth about $100 million. They're kind of relating it to like a kind of a YMCA type thing. It's going to have a pool, a recreation center, that type of thing. So it's going to, there are almost 1 million Muslims in New York alone. So they're saying that it would help that community out. Mayor Bloomberg has been in support of it. The president has spoken out on it. Should he have gotten involved in this controversy?
I think not. I don't think he should have. I think he should have stated that, you know, our Constitution allows religious freedom, and it prevents persecution to different religions. And that's as far as he should have gone. As far as whether it should have been there or not is really well beyond his I think he should not have made a statement in that reference at all. It's a local issue, but nevertheless it has a national implication. And so you can't extract one from the other. I think the appropriateness of it and a common sense approach that it is too close to Ground Zero, where many Americans lost their lives, is a sensitive issue. A common sense approach by those that would like to build it there needs to be understood, and no one is saying you can't build a mosque in New York, just not there.
The White House issued a statement today saying that the president will not have any more comments about the situation. Now, the U.S. has always been known for religious tolerance. America spent, obviously, General, millions of dollars to try to improve the image with the Muslim community, especially in the Arab world. Now, what would this do to that image?
Well, I think it's a golden opportunity for them, too, to understand that when you have an ambassador, so to speak, going out into the Mideast, talking about the importance of religious tolerance, he has a responsibility to educate those in that country that we do allow religious tolerance in the country. That's one of our basic tenets of our Constitution. But the appropriateness and the common sense approach is, I think, an area he has to concentrate on for them to understand the sensitivity that we're dealing with. Not to educate the American people that we must allow them to do this. You must allow them to be educated from that point of view that we don't mind and we'll never stop you from building a mosque. But what we're saying is this is a highly sensitive area. It is almost sacred ground to us, and this is where 9/11 happened, and it just does not make common sense approach that you should put one that close to it. Build it somewhere else in New York. No one has a problem with that.
How do you think this is going to play out?
I think eventually you'll see it go through the whole series of several years of doing it. I think eventually you will see it built, but I think not with a lot of concern and perhaps a lot of public voices being heard on both sides. And unfortunately, I think it'll eventually evolve into a long-standing political scenario. And I think that's the important part, too. Both political parties have handled this wrong, in my opinion. This is not a political issue. This is an issue of our Constitution allowing religious freedom. How you approach it is what's been lost. The sensitivity, the common sense approach, the appropriateness has not been focused on well enough.
So do you think this could hurt the president politically?
I think it will, because it's become a political issue. He already checked in, he weighed in on it, he made a statement, and he's going to find it very hard to back off that statement.
Okay, moving on. Number of U.S. troops in Iraq now, General, has fallen below 50,000 for the first time since 2003. It's actually ahead of schedule by a month. Is the story here about the 50,000 troops that are leaving Iraq, or is it being committed to that country?
I think if you look at it from, once again, it depends on where you're sitting as to where you stand. And in reference to that, if you look at the compromise that was made in reference to bringing troops out ahead of time, as well as on schedule. There's a something that has to be understood. It was all based upon Iraq's ability to maintain its own security. What we're seeing so far, that is not the case. The Iraqi army and security forces have not been able to sustain a level of security and keep the violence level down. When we see those 50,000, when we see the 50,000 troops remaining there without combat troops to support them, that's going to be a tremendously challenging time, and I'm fearful that that may cause us to go back in.
Well, we just saw more violence this week in Iraq, so the troops really are nearby where they could go right back in, right?
Right. You have quite a few troops still stationed in Kuwait and other places across the nation. You do have a rapid response capability, but even with that, those 50,000 troops that don't have a combat capability to be able to go in and take out insurgents who are attacking them, they're there in a defensive posture. You can't maintain a defensive posture when you have free will of the insurgents throughout the rest of the country continuously conducting violence.
You know, we've heard so much about the Iraqi army, but the elections never really produced a clear winner there. So there is a weakness there with the government also.
Absolutely. Yeah. Between the government not having a clear mandate by the people of Iraq and the military forces of Iraq and security forces not demonstrating they can maintain their own security, once again, the lion's share and responsibility goes to those 50,000 troops and the U.S. to be the only possibility that if something continues to deteriorate beyond what it is now, the only option is to go back in. And that's always been an option, and it was always based upon whether Iraq can maintain its own security or not.
Yeah, we're talking about Iraq. What about Afghanistan? Are they ready to maintain their own security? Well,
based upon a report that came out yesterday, General Caldwell stated that the Afghan army, as it's preparing to train up, is experiencing an inordinate amount of desertions and an inordinate amount of injuries. Now, they're in a training configuration. What happens when they go to a combat position and we start to withdraw U.S. troops? That's a whole new bag of worms. And what we're talking about here is we can't maintain a timetable unless it's based upon a secure country. Afghanistan, too, has lost a lot of confidence in its civilian government because of the splintering and the tribes and how they look at a central authority. And so far, that has not happened.
You know, it's similar to what's going on in Pakistan. Obviously, people know about the flooding that's taking place. 1,500 people have lost their lives just in the last month alone. But we're seeing reports that, you know, the citizens of Pakistan now have lost confidence in the civilian government as well. So could that pose a threat? A terrorist threat.
Absolutely, and what it does, and all your points are well made, that is that if you're looking at Iraq, if you're looking at Afghanistan, you're looking at Pakistan, there's a void that's being created by the confidence level in the people of its own government, whether you're looking at Pakistan, Afghanistan, or Iraq. That void, unfortunately, is being looked at also by the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. That void will undoubtedly attempt to be filled by the insurgencies and by the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. If that starts to happen and you continue to lose confidence in the civilian authorities, which has not received a full mandate, then you have clearly another military government, which is right back where we started to begin with. But of particular consequence in Pakistan, they do have nuclear capability. And when you have the military in charge of itself and not having civilian authorities, that's an area that concerns me. Because once that happens and you have military in control, they look at it from a military point of view. And to use any force beyond what we're seeing right now would be a tremendous escalation for the Mideast in general.
And on that point, we're seeing social unrest there, people looking for food and money, so that's a problem. We're also hearing, General, that Al-Qaeda is freeing hostages for ransom. I know you have talked about this in the past, saying this is absolutely the wrong highway to go down.
It is, because if they see that there's something to be gained by capturing and taking hostages, they know they can get ransom for it, it's going to say, well, let's do it again, and they'll keep doing it. But if they know they cannot have a return in their efforts by ransom, then they probably wouldn't have as much effort being placed into it. So I think it's been said since day one, you cannot negotiate with terrorists, you cannot negotiate with insurgents. and for them to play into the hands of returning a ransom for the hostages, it's once again negotiating and giving some kind of a reward for the return of the hostages.
The UN nuclear chief is holding talks with the Israelis this week. Israel, widely believed to have nuclear weapons, General, they are refusing to discuss this issue. Actually, the Arab nations are pushing for Israel to open up their nuclear programs to inspectors. So I guess the first question, should they do that?
No, they shouldn't. And the reason is that Israel has never, ever said that she wants to destroy anybody else with those nuclear weapons. It's been, if she has them in fact, it's been always defensive. On the other hand, when you try to draw the same analogy with Iran, so why should Iran open up its nuclear program to inspectors? Because Iran has stated publicly the intent of Iran is to eliminate Israel. And so when you have an offensive capability being built, you need to be aware of that, and someone has to watch it. And that's the major difference.
And right now, Iran is, speaking of Iran, they're producing 2 assault boats right now. That is a concern?
To assault capability in reference to
right.
Assault boats, in addition to the
drones that they have.
The drones, the unmanned bombers. Once again, a capability. If it's looked at in a defensive way, that's one thing. But when you have already stated your policy, you're building a capability to destroy Israel, that goes beyond the defensive capability.
Okay, and finally, the don't ask, don't tell policy, a kind of a survey, I guess, was sent out to spouses in the military.
Yeah, and I don't understand that one. Most of the time you'll get a response from a married couple, certainly not endorsing don't ask, don't tell, or refuting it, or whatever way you look at it. I don't think it's necessary for the spouse to get involved in this. This is a defense policy. That survey is nothing more than a snapshot of a time. And what we're looking to is retention as well as further recruitment. That's what we need to do. Talk to the soldiers themselves. They're the ones in the foxhole. They're the ones that have to depend on their fellow soldiers to defend themselves.
Okay. General, as always, thank you very much for your time.
Good to be here.
Okay. And thanks for watching.